Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some malicious compliance stories and our first story of the day is by Werling929. Don't turn anyone away for $100 bills. At my work, corporate doesn't want us to lose any amount of business for any reason, so we're required to take large bills. Even if they're buying like a $2 newspaper, I still have to break the 100 they present to me. When I first clock in the morning, my register only has $100 exactly. Lately, especially on Sundays, my very first transaction of the day involves a $100 bill because they know they can break it at our location. I could go get my boss and have them give me 20 so I can break the bill easier, but that's not fun. Keep in mind, I don't start my shift with 20s in my drawer. So I make the customer watch me pull out my 10s, then 5s, then 1s, then I start on the quarters. They can't say anything because I'm breaking their bill, and they can see that I don't have anything else in my drawer. They can only bite their tongues and glance at the growing line nervously. People stare, the customer sweats, the line grows. I hand over the pile of coins and $1 bills. Without fail, every time, they step to the side to count to make sure I was accurate. The next customer steps up. I cheerfully say, "Sorry, it'll be a few minutes before I can do any transactions. My drawer is out of money." The customer that wiped out my drawer looks ashamed. I walk into the back room with the 100 and my supervisor stares at me. "You did it again, didn't you?" She opens her desk drawer and starts counting 10s and 5s to exchange for my 100. It's too much to watch them squirm, I admit. You bring me 100s and I give public humiliation in return. She laughs and puts her head down on the desk. "Please keep doing this, it's way too funny." I gather the money she's giving me and give her a thumbs up. She takes the 100, I head back up to the counter. The customer is still counting their ones and the line is much longer now. "Sorry about the wait," I say, putting away my money. "I ran out of cash in my drawer." I watch the customer blush and squirm. I am fulfilled. Be honest guys, if you went up to a cashier and asked if they could break your 100, they said they could and then they start breaking out the 5s and 1s and quarters, would you just ask for your 100 back? Cause I think I probably would. Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Thepettiest. Smelly Creepy Boss gets what's coming. This was about 5 years ago when I, 21 at the time, was working at a major bank in a position that had me making calls and verifying credit card activity. We were expected to make 8 calls per hour, assuming most calls will probably go to voicemail. It was mindless and I was almost always stoned, but still ended up being a high performer in making easily 11 to 12 calls per hour. My boss, let's call him Cole, loved me. He started having me train newcomers and brought me to lunch with some up-and-coming managers. This was a big deal to my career, so when he started flirting with me, I mostly brushed it off and went on with my day, creating new materials, helping colleagues with random questions, and still making a huge amount of calls. Cole and I were both being recognized for the team's efforts. Then, he brought me to his office, which stinks. It's not a smell I've ever smelled before and haven't since, but needless to say, it's a smelly smell that smells smelly. Like an old pair of wet socks that were wrung out onto the carpet? On this particular stinky day, Cole asks me to close the door behind him and gives me the smile that still gives me chills. He starts to unbutton his shirt saying it's hot in there. "Oh, isn't it hot? You should get undressed too." I stormed out. Heck no was I dealing with that. I went through a bit of a depression and immediately looked for other jobs, contributing less and less every day until I wasn't speaking to any colleagues, except the dope ones who knew what was happening. Here's where malicious compliance comes in. Every hour I would spend 20 to 40 minutes making 8 calls and then turning off my computer and started playing crosswords or drawing pictures or using my phone in the bathroom until the hour was up. Cole noticed very quickly that I was doing the absolute bare minimum and called me into a meeting. I willed myself to go without calling HR and he was threatening to write me up for my bad moods and not working hard enough. I looked him dead in the eyes and asked if he thought it was hot in here. And he immediately starts bursting into excuses. "Oh, you're misinterpreting things," and the like. I told him I wasn't misinterpreting anything and he snaps back that I am losing out on an excellent opportunity. I pull out my phone and stop recording. thank him for his time, see the red fall out of his face, and then continue on what I'm doing for the next month while I found a new job in the company. From what I know, he quit shortly thereafter and doesn't have a Facebook or LinkedIn to show where he is currently. I have no plans to release the recording, but still have it just in case. Yeah, no, that boss should have been reported. It's understandable that OP probably wouldn't have wanted to make a spectacle out of it, and my most sincere condolences to them that they even had to experience something like that, but that kind of stuff really should not stay under wraps whatsoever. And it's probably easy to assume why he quit shortly thereafter because it probably wasn't just OP and there was more going on. Our next story is by SimWiz. You won't give me a form to save everyone's time? Fine, I'll waste more of yours. Post offices in Canada are maddening places to visit, a kind of time warp bubble where even the simplest of actions like sending a letter can take 3 to 4 more steps than necessary. The people working in them seem pleasant enough, but God help you if you want to just drop in and quickly send a package. My malicious compliance takes place in one such small town post office where 2 employees work, post office guy and post office lady. I have a small business and my customers will sometimes request priority 2-day express shipping to the USA. This is a very expensive service that has 2 large customs forms that take about 10 minutes to fill out. You have to press hard with your pen so it goes through all 6 carbon copies. In the past, I've requested these forms to take home where I can fill them out ahead of time, so when I get to the counter, my parcel is ready to go and can be processed quickly. Nice and efficient. However, after my last shipment, post office guy refused to give me new forms to take home. When I asked him why, I was told, "It's our policy not to give out forms ahead of time." I replied that I've received them before and it saves everyone a lot of time. To which he replied, "Next time you're in, talk to post office lady, it's her policy." I was then told to leave the line, go fill out my forms, and come through the line again. The next time I shipped a 2-day express parcel, I went through the line, and this time I was greeted by post office lady, and she began to enter my package. She measures it all up, weighs it, and enters it all into her computer. Then she asks me how I want to send it, to which I replied, 2-day priority please. She proceeded to sigh, turn around, retrieve my customs forms, hand them to me, and tells me to go to the side counter and fill these out and come back. Afterwards, I asked her if I could please get extra copies of the form, to which she replied that they can't give those forms out ahead of time. When I asked why, she just glared at me and said, "It's our policy." My small and petty act of malicious compliance is that from now on, every time I have a priority 2-day parcel, I intentionally and patiently wait for her to measure it, weigh it, enter it into her system, and ask me how I would like to ship the package before putting on my biggest poop-eating grin and declaring, "Priority 2-day, please." She rolls her eyes, gets me the forms, sends me to my paperwork corner, and then has to delete all the data she just entered into her computer before she can help the next customer. Today was especially delicious. I had 2 packages, one to be sent via regular mail, the second via 2-day priority. I of course put down the regular mail package first, let her enter it all into her system, she even printed the label, then let her go through entering the second package, only to gleefully declare 2-day priority please, and watch her have to undo all the work she just did and get me my forms. It's petty, it wastes everyone's time, but somehow it makes visiting the post office just a little bit more enjoyable. And apparently OP said that they do have online forms for every other shipping method except priority 2-day shipping. All in all, post office lady is just continually making it hard on her and making every experience of 2-day priority please just a massive sigh letdown. Maybe as time goes on and OP keeps doing this to them, they'll reconsider. But for now, 2-day priority please. Our next story is by Am I Outside? The dishes used during dinner smelled like butt because my dad told me to just rinse them. My parents always used the police as the boogeyman as a child. Whenever I heard sirens, my parents would say, "They're coming to get you," regardless if it was an ambulance or police. I was a child, didn't know the difference between the sound. One day I heard sirens, so I shouted police while my parents were driving. They yelled at me and called me a liar. I got my butt beat when I got home for lying. It wasn't the police, it was an ambulance. As a kid, I thought they were one and the same. Flash forward a couple of days later, my father asks me to rinse the dishes. I figured this was an odd request, but I just got my butt beat, so I was going to comply. My parents had this terrible time of leaving all the dishes in the sink, and they would stay there for a couple of days. I did exactly as he asked me to and rinsed the dishes. No soap, no scrubbing, just rinsing. So my parents are starting to serve dinner, and they noticed that the dishes just smelled a little off, and they were starting to wonder why there were little flakes on the dishes. I was the only person that had a different plate on the table because I wanted my plate actually clean. After my parents and my sisters started eating, I told my dad that it was such a strange request that he wanted me to only rinse the dishes. I wish I could do that from now on because it saves me time from washing them. Everyone just drops their food in disgust. My mom looks over to my dad and asks him, "Why the freak did you tell him to only rinse the dishes?" My dad said that he meant wash. I called him a liar. Subsequently, I got my butt beat again. It was worth it. What I'm not understanding here is why, as a kid, when you yelled police and it wasn't the police, it was an ambulance, they beat your butt for it. What? You got your butt beat for lying when you mistook an ambulance for a police car? I'm not really liking the sounds of this experience, to be honest. And then also getting your butt beat at the end of the story because you took your father at his own word when you were a kid and weren't smart enough to know the extra meaning behind rinse the dishes. Just disappointing. And our final story of the day is by For Real This Time 99, Package Stacking Malicious Compliance. A few years ago, I worked in the warehouse at a delivery company. My job was to stack the boxes in the back of the semi-trucks so that they could be transported to the next facility. Me and another poor sap would stand in the back of a hot truck while packages came down a chute into the truck. There were small packages, light packages, and heavy packages. We had to grab the boxes as soon as they came down the chute, scan their barcodes, and stack them fast as possible and as high as possible. The ideal stack should be about a foot from the ceiling of the truck. This was a bit of a problem for me because I am kind of short. Once the stack got so high, I could give the smaller packages a little bit of a toss to get them on top of the stack, but when the bigger ones came down the chute, I had to start a new stack. The solution for this problem was something called a load stand. It's basically a big yellow plastic staircase for shorties like me. This helped me stack higher, but it slowed me down greatly, since I had to leave my truck to get the load stand, put it in place, stack the last few packages, and then move it out of the way so I could start a new stack. This could easily double the amount of time it took me to stack packages. At the beginning of each shift, we would get in a huddle and our manager would tell us how bad of a job we did the night before. He would tell us that we didn't stack the boxes fast enough and we didn't stack them high enough, and that we didn't do a good enough job of scanning them. He had all this written on a whiteboard so we could see exactly how bad of a job we did the previous night. He would then tell us that there would be way more packages today and that we needed to do a better job than we did yesterday. So I'm stacking as high and as fast as I can, but this particular day was extra busy. The packages were coming down the chute so fast that they would fall out onto the floor of the truck. They would fall all around our feet and legs so that we had to stack incredibly fast in order to be able to move. Of course, this made it more difficult for me to stack high. I tried. The smaller, lighter packages could get tossed to the top, but then a bunch of heavy ones would come and I'd have to start a new stack. It was summer in the back of a semi-truck and I was completely covered in sweat. My shirt was soaked and my eyes were stinging from my sweat. I was up to my knees in packages and they kept coming down the chute. My manager popped his head in my truck and yelled, "Hey, use the load stand." "If you insist." I stopped stacking and walked out of my truck to get the load stand. I had to walk over packages, crunching them beneath my feet. Then I had to climb over the conveyor belt full of packages, denting some of those as well. I got the load stand and walked over more packages back to my spot. I set the load stand down on top of the ever-growing package pile. I climbed the load stand and I could feel the boxes flatten from my weight. And I grabbed some of the packages that weren't smashed yet and managed to stack them to the very tippy top. Okay, take a break, get a drink of water," he said. While I was getting a drink of water, the manager came up to me and patted me on the back, getting sweat all over his hand, and said what I did was dangerous and I needed to be more careful. I was just doing what you told me to." He didn't yell at me about the load stand again. I definitely don't envy the people doing this job because that sounds insane and very active. More than I could do, that's for darn sure. I'd just sit here and read stories. I would be dead after one shift of attempting to do this job. So my kudos to OP and everybody else that still does this crazy job. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you enjoyed the stories today, let me know which one was your personal favorite and why in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, please like this video and subscribe and turn notifications on because anything you do helps this channel grow so much more. So no matter what you do, whether it was just watching the video, liking, subscribing, thank you all so very much for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day and I'll see you all next time right here.